Yeah, to start off, first off, good afternoon. My name is Robert Whitlock. To start off, I started the 10 different brands of balls that I use in my study are being passed around right here. Just make sure you keep them in the thing so they don't roll over everywhere, so I don't twist my ankle. So we're going to start. Oh, let me get this. Our project, as you can see, is going green, and I am Robert Whitlock. There's an old saying in golf that says that golf is measured in yards, but it is a game of inches. And that kind of holds true to the idea of my project that I'm doing, my inquiry. I just like to share this quote because it is true. Even though you have golf courses that are measured in sevens of thousands of yards, almost even 10,000 yards, tens of thousands of yards, it is a matter of inch that can make a difference. Golf has many factors, such as the course that you play, the golf club that you use, the weather that it is outside, and the distractions that you have to deal with. The one main factor that I'm looking at is the golf balls. As you can see on this next slide, there are many different types of golf balls. There are 2 pieces, 3 pieces, and 4 pieces. 2-piece golf balls have the cover, as you guys have seen in the round ball. That's where the dimples lay. And then the 2-piece has a core on the inside. The 3-piece has the cover with the dimples, and then it has a cover underneath the cover, or a layer underneath the cover, and it covers the core. Those give you a little bit more control, and 3 pieces is what most professionals and most, I guess, high-class amateurs use. And then you have the 4-piece. And then you have a 5-piece that has 5 layers, including the core. Those balls really don't get used as much because they haven't really tested that well. They're relatively new to the game of golf. But most professionals use 3 pieces and 4-piece golf balls, whereas I use a 2-piece golf ball for my study. So as I said, what I wanted to do is my null hypothesis is that there is no significant difference between the distance that between the brand of ball and the distance that it travels. And I wanted to prove that there is a significant statistical difference between the distance that the ball travels and the brand of ball it is. I'm sorry, the brand of ball and the distance that it travels. Sorry. So as you have probably seen, there are 10 different brands of balls. The first one is a Titleist Tour Distance SF. Titleist is the #1 brand in golf. That's what they claim to be. And it is the most popular golf brand on tour and by amateurs. It's actually also the most expensive ball too. Then I had Nike. They're power distance long. They have different types of power distance. They have power distance long, power distance soft, and power distance straight. I decided to use the power distance long because I was testing the distance, not necessarily the accuracy. The next one was the new S2Fs. These are kind of your basic amateur ball. One of the cheapest balls you can find in stores, mainly at Walmart. The Stratus. These balls are actually recycled balls, and I'll get into that when I get to the data that I actually analyzed. Then you have Bridgestone golfs, just like the Bridgestone tires. They make golf balls too and golf clubs. But like I said, I'm just looking at the balls. They have Top Flights, which are again a cheap brand, usually found at your retail stores like Kmart, Walmart, Target, those. You have your Wilson Profile Anti-Slice. Your TaylorMade. Now, this is also Titleist, but it's different from the original Titleist. These are Titleist X-Outs. What X-Out means is that it didn't reach the requirements of the Titleist brand. Like, they made these balls, they were kind of dysfunctional in some way. So instead of just throwing the balls away and not making any money, they sell them for minimum profit, usually about $10 a box. And they still sell them and make a little bit of profit, but they are not allowed to be used on tournament play. They are good for amateurs and people who are learning how to golf because it still is a good golf ball, but it is not necessarily a regulation golf ball. And the last one was the Callaways. The Callaways is kind of interesting. You cannot see it on here, but I don't know if you guys looked at the ball. You can kind of see it. The Callaways, instead of having round dimples, have hexagonal dimples, which a lot of people think that it gives an advantage. I really don't see how it could because usually you want to have round dimples because it gives you a little bit softer feel. But I don't know if you compare this ball with the other ones. It's usually a little bit softer, you can kind of tell, and the dimples is kind of interesting to look at. So the procedure that I used I picked five balls of each brand. I teed it up to a set height, and using my pitching wedge instead of my 7-iron, because when I went out there, I took a few swings of my 7-iron, and they were going almost to the road, as you can see back here. It's at my dad's house. So I had to use a pitching wedge because it was actually easier to measure, and we only had 300-foot tape measure. So that's after I hit each ball randomly, I just set them in a pile, all 50 balls, and just picked each ball randomly. I measured the distance, wrote it down, analyzed it, and then I presented, which I'm doing right now. And this video didn't have sound, except for I left my cell phone next to the camera, and I got cell phone interference. So you can't actually hear anything that I'm saying, but you can kind of see what's going on. That's my fiance in the background, by the way. She helped me out. She was a real trooper. She walked about 2 miles. It was rough. But yeah, I'm going to hit another ball. The reason that I showed 2 shots is that you can see that I tried to do the best of having a consistent swing. So as soon as she puts the stake down, which is right now, I laid down the ball and I yelled out. We lettered each box and we yelled out the letter and allowed me to actually allow her to mark the flag and then set the stake down. So then when we measured it, I really didn't have an idea of where each ball was, so I didn't have a distinct, I guess, mental advantage. So here's my second swing, and it was pretty alright. So here comes the fun part. Once this cuts off. Here's the data. For the Titleist Tour Distance SFs, it was labeled A. You may be able to see it. I realize it was that hard. You may be able to see it. The distance that I had right here, this is right here, the mean was approximately 116, 117 yards was the mean distance. And here are the p-values that I had. The critical p-value that I was going for was 0.05. And as you can see, all my data compared to the different balls, they did not reach any of the p-value. They didn't get anywhere close to the critical p-value, except for that one. But it still is not really that close in comparison. That's still 88% chance, so it's okay, but it's not really what we're looking for. So I had to fail to reject no. The Nike Power Distance Long, the mean was about 109 yards. And here's the data, the p-values. As you can see again, the only one that got close was this ball compared to ball H, which we'll get to. It did not get anywhere close to the critical p-value, so again, we failed to reject no. Ball C was the Noodle S2X. The mean distance was 110 yards approximately. Critical p-value didn't get close again. Failed to reject no. This is going to become the recurring trend. Now, let me explain a little bit more about the strata balls. I didn't explain when I was talking about the balls. The mean distance that it went was 106.32 yards. And if you can see right here, value distance A, and it goes on to say grade next to it. What it's saying is that it's a grade A recycled ball. These balls are actually recycled and once used, and they were recovered by a dive team who actually dive in like murky waters and pick the balls out. And they take them, clean them up, bleach them, and when you open them, it smells like bleach. And they are actually balls that you can use on tournaments. They don't. Most people, if you're on a tournament, you're going to afford nice balls. And I've never even heard of the brand Strata, so I was just interested to see how they work. And they're a grade A, which is the highest grade of recycled balls you can get. So the distance was 106 yards, and the p-values were pretty close, but still failed to reject no. Like I said, this becomes a recurring theme. The Bridgestone balls, 107 yards, nowhere close. Failed. Top Flight, 115 yards, p-values, not close. Failed to reject no. Wilson balls, 116 yards. Here's the p-values. Almost the exact same ball is what this is saying. The p-value is saying that it's almost the exact same variance as ball I. So, failed to reject no. Ball H, which was TaylorMade, 118 yards average. Not close again. Failed to reject no. And the last ball that we can compare with another ball, the Titleist X-Outs. Mean distance of 116 yards. P-value for the remaining ball, almost again the exact same ball. So we failed to reject no. And then the last ball just show you the data of the mean distance of the Callaway ball, 116 yards approximately, and we failed to get null because it was anywhere distance. So here's my complete data set. I set it in an Excel chart so I wouldn't have to link it to my account and have to do all that. The diagonal is where the two balls are compared to each other. So AA, there's no data because you can't compare the same ball. So what I did was, you can see that 3 that was closest right here are still a pretty far distance away from the critical p-value of 0.05. So and you can see that none of the data is actually able to reject, that I had to fail to reject, no, I can't accept my alternative hypothesis. So looking at that data, I looked at the standard deviation, which was really where I should look at. Because if you saw all those data sets, all the amount of the distance that the ball traveled, the inch of the ball traveled, you can see that there was a very wide variance, or very wide standard deviation and range of where the balls were. Some of them went 88 yards, some of them went 134 yards. So that's what I looked at next when I saw that none of my values were actually rejecting the null. So what I did, the Titleist and the TaylorMade were the most consistent balls that I hit, which means that each ball traveled relatively the same amount of distance. Whereas you can see the Callaway, that's 21 yards difference, which is a matter of club length, almost 2 club lengths if you really want to think about it. So I wasn't really consistent with the data that I received, which would probably iron out if I were to do more data. But hitting 50 golf balls isn't nearly as fun as you probably think it is. So we go back to the data. You can see that ball A and ball H, if we were to compare that ball, they're relatively the same distance. So in conclusion, there's no statistical difference between any golf ball and the distance that they travel, which I found quite interesting. I figured that at least the Strata ball, which I had never heard of, and maybe the Titleist ball, which is a high quality 2-piece golf ball, would travel at least a little bit more, which have a farther distance than the ball that I never heard of. And in golf, what really matters is the consistent play that you have from each golf ball. You don't want to have a golf ball that one time, if you hit it thin, it's going to travel 50 yards farther than if you hit it a little bit fat, which means, if you want a little definition, a little jargon, thin shot means that you hit it very flat and you hit it pretty much all the sole of the golf club, or if you hit it fat, you hit ground and golf ball, so it's going to take a little bit of distance off of it. So what you really want from your golf balls is that you want consistent play. You don't want a ball that's going to travel 88 yards or 134 yards. And also, some improvements that I would do, I would probably do more golf balls and probably spend millions of dollars on a robot that could swing consistent speed, and probably do it at an indoor facility where there's no wind variance or any type of variance at all. Have it teed up to the exact height, and then I could even use a driver in that case because the robot's going to swing the exact same speed, exact same club face angle, and anything similar that may have any change or cause any error in my data. And that's all my presentation, and I'm open for questions.
What?
Go ahead.
When you were calculating your chi-square values, were you
P-values.
Or your p-values? Were you calculating like the differences between like each individual ball and the mean of all the balls, or the mean of each brand?
What I did, I calculated this. Oh, I'm sorry. I calculated the mean of each ball. That's what I did.
I compared it to the mean of like all of the balls combined, or just that brand?
I did brand by brand. So for brand A, same thing that we did last time, that Lindsay did. Instead of doing an ANOVA test, I did p-values for every single one of my balls, and it took me quite a bit of time. So what I did was, for brand A, I did brand A versus brand B, brand A versus brand C, brand A versus brand D, all the way through to brand J. And the same thing for brand B through H. So that's how I calculated it, and that's what I actually did the calculations 3 or 4 times to make sure I got the same amount, because as we talked about before, you was more likely to get a typo and error. So I actually wrote down the values and calculated it, both in the calculator and using Excel.
And you were calculating one brand to itself?
One brand to another brand.
When you have when you want to hit the ball 110 yards, say, what club do you pull out of your bag?
Usually my sand wedge or pitching wedge, depending on the conditions of the golf. Like that's another thing that depends on the matter. Looking at the data, if I were to pick a ball, I would probably pick the TaylorMade because I'm going to get the most consistent play from it. Because most consistent from first shot to the last shot. I got the most consistent distance from it. So I would probably pick the TaylorMade ball, which you can't choose balls in between shots.
No.
So you have to choose a ball at the beginning of the round and continue with that ball throughout the round. So I would probably shoot that shot with the TaylorMade using my pitching wedge. Because depending on the makeup of the ball is the more you can make it move on the green. So let's say, I don't know if anybody has watched golf, but sometimes when they hit the shot and they hit it further and then it stops and it rotates and spins back, that's usually because the golf ball is a little bit softer and the golf ball actually compresses into the grooves, and the grooves make the ball have a lot of backspin, and when it lands, it stops going forward, it stops its forward momentum, and it requires it to spin backwards toward its actual target. So I would use probably a soft cover ball like TaylorMade and use the pitching wedge, which has not deeper grooves, but more accurate grooves and more accurate shot because it has a less variance of going left to right.
Do you think it would have been more meaningful if you would have gone with a target of, say, 110 yards and then hit balls and get some kind of measurement, like a plus or minus distance from that? Wouldn't it have been more like what you're shooting for golf?
If I were looking at the
instead of distance with a pitching wedge.
Yes, if I was looking at the accuracy of the golf ball, then yes, I would do that. But since my study was looking at the distance, I was just seeing, because most people, there's another saying in golf that says you drive for show and putt for real. So most people like to say that they are long off the tee, but those people may not be as accurate off in their mid-range game. Yeah. So what I was looking at, I was seeing if the makeup of a ball actually has a statistical difference, as some companies say, like TaylorMade or the Callaway say that their ball is the longest ball off the tee box. Whereas you can look at this data and say that if I were probably to have enough data, that was sufficient amount of data of each ball to where the variances would be close, it probably still wouldn't make a difference. Statistically, would make a difference of the distance the ball travels.
Do you think? Sorry. Do you think that hitting it with a pitching wedge negates those claims? Those claims would only be relevant if you were hitting with a driver?
Possibly. The thing about drivers is that it's a little bit less accurate, and the ability to actually, actually go out and measure it would be almost not nearly impossible, but
with one of those GPSs,
I could probably use GPS, but
it would have been perfect for that.
I don't think Karen wasn't too happy with buying golf balls as is, so I don't think Karen would be too happy with buying a GPS system for me to use one time. I could use it multiple times if she's not willing to.
It'll tell you how
far. In the beginning, you spoke about layers in the golf ball. What does that have to do? I didn't quite understand that part.
I will explain. But I wasn't going to mention that unless somebody asked. So I'm glad that you asked.
And you have 1 minute to explain it, and your time is up.
Okay. Okay. As you can see, the layer of the golf balls, it actually allows the balls to compress more because the core is actually a hard piece of whatever material the company decides to use. So with these layers, it allows the ball to compress more and allows you to have more control and allows you to allow more backspin or side spin or whatever type of spin that you want to use. So if you were to have this ball, you have 1, 2, 3 layers of soft material before you get to the hard core of the ball. And it still weighs the same, but the density of it is actually less. So it's actually the same, it's the same mass, but it's different weight. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So when you hit the ball, if you see a ball in stop motion, the golf ball actually does compress a lot. And the more layers you have on the ball, the more compression you're going to get from the ball.
Oh, okay.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It depends on your type of play.
Okay.
Like I said, if you're an amateur, you're probably going to stay with these because you're not going to be spinning the ball that much. But if you're a pro or trying to be a pro, you're going to try to start spinning the ball a little bit more.